Get ready.
Hi, my name's Kaz Riley and welcome back to Trancing in the Sheets, the show where we talk about hypnosis and sex on the Hypnosis 247 Live Network. And I've got a really interesting guest for you today. I have got Keld Petersen from Denmark, who does all kinds of things, but very recently had a wonderful video, a wonderful feature on on Danish national TV, which has had over 500,000 views in a very short space of time. So welcome, Keld, to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, Keld, I understand you do all kinds of hypnosis that within the kind of sexual or sex realm, if you like. So everything from really fun erotic hypnosis demonstrations right the way through to some of the clinical things. Where do you kind of find yourself working the most?
It really depends on the day, I would say. Most of my clients that I see face to face are in the clinical aspect. Mm-hmm. Usually the very typical ones are men with issues around erection or ejaculation, orgasms, mm-hmm. Women who are not capable at that point in time of obtaining orgasm with a partner or at all. Mm-hmm. And those are the ones I work most with in my everyday life.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I know I've said this to a lot of people, but actually these issues are very, very common. You know, I know a lot of therapists don't work with these issues, but they're actually extremely common, aren't they? They're not. Yes, there's a lot of people that are looking for help with this. So, you know, as you're kind of working across the board with that, how do you find all that kind of stuff kind of affects people's lives?
Oh, it affects them tremendously. I mean, it is, you know, if we look back in our history, you know, I believe that we're still, you know, we're cavemen now stuck in a modern society. Our brains haven't kept up with the times. So to us, you know, no matter how we look at it, you know, it's essential that we can mate. It's essential we can have children, keep the line going. And when we can't do that, that ends in a world of frustration. And I think it's probably more important than pretty much everything else. You know, put away your limitations so that you can actually have a good, healthy sex life is more important than anything else.
No, I agree. I think, and it is those limitations, of course, often it's guilt and shame, isn't it? That
yes.
people are kind of shrouded in almost, you know, they're taught certain things.
Oh, yes.
And, you know, it sticks, it really sticks with people, doesn't it? Over a long period over their lifetimes until we kind of, as hypnotists, help them to kind of weed out that guilt and shame.
Yes, very, very much. I work relatively content-free when I help them release things, because obviously I don't know anything about people when they step in the door, and they can't possibly tell me everything that they've experienced. Yeah. So I work relatively content-free in the way that I know that they know deep down somewhere where the issues are, and we take care of those issues.
And I know, Keld, you know, like I do, I know I teach hypnosis within the kink community and within the erotic hypnosis community. Right. I know you feel very passionately, as I do, that, you know, people are going to use it in those areas. So actually what we need to do is teach them how to do it really well and really safely and understand consent and boundaries and all that kind of stuff. So Absolutely. Tell us a bit about some of the work that you do there, because that, I mean, it's fun, but actually it's just as important as the clinical stuff, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's great to help people clinically, but it's fun to teach people. It's fun to play with people using erotic hypnosis. First of all, I teach just like you do. I have classes where I teach erotic hypnosis, how to do this, you know, in a, as they say in those environments, safe, sane, and consensual way. so that they can, first of all, be experienced enough that they know what they're doing, experienced enough that we don't cause any harm, how to know if there is an abreaction, how to deal with things, because eventually, if we play a lot, we're going to run into trouble. And how to deal with that, how to slowly back out and get people comfortable again, and give them lots and lots of ideas to just have fun with this. You know, to me, it's the best sex toy in the world because we decide how it is. Um,
And of course, everybody has that sex toy because it all starts in the mind, doesn't it? So it's
exactly.
something that everybody has. And, you know, certainly from, you know, the things that I've worked with and the things that I see and some of the things that I've done, it, you know, people often, you know, it gives them confidence to explore for themselves their own sensuality and sexuality in a way that's actually very safe.
Yes.
Because they can do that, you know, how in a way that allows them to really enjoy that without actually doing anything. It's like kind of going for a walk in their own mind just to see the kinds of things that they do like, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You know, I have a little quote here and there on some of my stuff that says, "There's no playroom better equipped than your mind." You know, we really have everything if if we can imagine it, we can experience it. Doesn't matter how wild a thing or how ridiculous a thought it is. If we can just plant that one little seed, off we go. And I have seen this so many times and given people so many insane experiences. And it just blows my mind every time. And it's a blast doing it.
Tell us about, if you're able to, obviously, but tell us about some of those experiences that you've given other people, because using hypnosis in the way is alien to a lot of people. So
Yes.
tell us
Yes.
about some of the fun things that you've done, because I think
Um,
that's always a fun way to explain things.
yeah. I mean, obviously, I can't talk about clients,
No, no.
but I've done a lot of demos. Basically, sometimes if I have been in a swingers club, swingers resort, places like that, I do shows where I show a lot of the things we can do with this. Kind of a mixture of the traditional hypnosis entertainment show, but you know, much more sexual, much more, in my view, much more fun because we don't have the same limitations. We don't have to be too polite. We can get a little naughty, especially when we're in the swingers world, because people show up to these shows, they're already, you know, more or less undressed. They're already there to have a good time. They're going to go there to see the erotic hypnotist. So they know what to expect when they get on stage.
Yeah.
And that's a blast. But afterwards, there will always be people curious that didn't have the guts to come up with me, or maybe didn't pass the first tests to see if they were hypnotizable enough for that kind of stuff. Which doesn't mean at all that they can't be hypnotized, because everyone can. Um, with those, what I usually do, I have my own little pre-programmed thing, more or less. And what I like to do is first I hypnotize. I bring them into a trance, lots of deepeners where I prime them to that everything I tell them will just become their reality completely on all levels, and get some acceptance from the subconscious mind on that. And when we're there, I do some little testers. Mostly I use that when I touch your shoulder, just completely nice and clean, you will feel extreme sexual pleasure. First of all, it's fun for the recipient. Second of all, it's very, very easy to read for me because you can tell there's going to be a lot of the moment you touch, and it's very sexy, it's fun, and it's already there for them a huge convincer that holy crap, something's happening here. And um, when we pass that test, when I know that I got them, I usually tell them to stay in hypnosis and open their eyes. I love doing stuff like sensory games with their eyes open, because it's even more mind blowing for them.
Mm,
And I start telling them that, notice that when I touch their hand with my finger, it vibrates.
mm,
And then I can, mostly it's girls who wants the experience. Guys are a little more hesitant with this.
mm-hmm.
So what I'm going to tell you is typically how I do it with a woman.
Okay.
Um, then I will tell them, that my finger vibrates, and they can feel that like right on their hand, and just imagine that. And then you can basically just make that experience just shift itself through the body to the clitoris, and go straight for something sexual that they would not in their wildest imagination expect would happen or could happen.
Mm,
If they're there with their boyfriend, I will tell them that now his finger is connected to their clitoris, and ask him to play with his finger while she's watching. And it's a blast. She can feel everything. I ask him to lick his finger. I
mm,
ask him to just do things to his finger and just go nuts with it a little bit. I make them experience cold, heat. If they're into BDSM stuff like that, I make them experience pain. I
mm-hmm.
make them experience, maybe the um, um, like electricity, little
Mm-hmm.
shocks, stuff like that. I show them how we can do bondage without rope.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, give them the illusion of being tied to a bed, unable to move,
Mm-hmm.
and then again the hypnotic illusion of maybe a big vibrator between the legs, stuff like that. Really go nuts with it.
And it sounds like there's bondage or something going on outside my office at the minute. There's a whole kind of crashing and banging going on, but we'll just ignore it and
just
work
just
through it.
go tell them to go deeper then.
Go deeper then, yeah. Well, actually, they're moving out of what's going to be my new office, so I can't complain too much.
Well, that looks good.
Now, what people often don't realize is some people may be sat listening to this thinking, "My God, they do what?" And how what do they do with hypnosis? And oh my goodness, this is really bad. But actually, I'd kind of invite those people just to think about this, because what you're essentially doing, and especially for a lot of these people, they're very shut down. They're very, very shut down. They haven't been able to experience very much.
Mm-hmm.
Or, this is a great well for couples to connect. This is, if you're working with two people and you're doing something now, that there is obviously a big clinical aspect to this as well. So, the reverse of that, I've done something very similar with the reverse of that, where actually it was the male party that was having issues, and we gave the female the kind of the ability to touch in a certain way so that she could cause
Mm-hmm.
feelings. Now, this man had been involved in an accident and wasn't physically unable to get an erection. And, their kind of marriage and their relationship had really broken down. But because we could connect them back in hypnotically, sensually and sexually, then, so this stuff, goes right across the board. Yes, it's a lot of fun and it's great, isn't it? When we're kind of just playing with it. But actually, these things have very clinical applications as well.
Absolutely.
And it's very much about, and for some people all it takes is to do something in the erotic hypnosis world, and it just opens their minds and it gives them permission to feel pleasure. And this is one of my kind of big things, is about this permission for pleasure. And we live in a world at the moment where we're told just about anything we like is bad for us, isn't it?
Yeah.
And everything but sex and those feelings and sensual feelings are actually amazingly good for us.
Absolutely.
So we're tapping into that, aren't we?
Yes. I think it's I've had numerous clients that started with a demo, and once we're past the first little testers and demos, also, they are going to be wrapped up in orgasms and all kinds of great feelings.
Mhm.
I always I always leave the person that I play with feeling absolutely incredible, lots of confidence and knowing their worth, and just building it up massively.
Mm.
um, because why not? I'm in charge of how are you gonna feel. Why not just make them feel better than they have ever felt? And when I do that, when they kind of also they once they realize that, wait a minute, I can actually get these orgasms,
Mm.
it allows them to have orgasms at other times. A lot of times that happens. um I've seen it so many times now, and one could argue it's bad for business when I fix it just because of a fun demo, but sometimes it just happens, and they're always going to come back with something more,
I absolutely agree. I think it's good for business when you can do that, because
Yeah.
they go and tell their friends, and people often in a demo have
Oh, yeah.
seen it, haven't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, the beauty of this is that, especially when it comes to things like anorgasmia, is that people are able to experience this fully clothed in a safe environment without anybody touching them. So if you've got
Yes.
somebody that's had real issues around that, they can really start to get in touch with themselves and those feelings, and knowing what they can even just create by themselves in their own minds, in in a way where they could be, they're literally clothed from head to toe, nobody's touching them, there's actually nothing sexual going on other
No.
than what's going on in their mind, which is a really amazing thing, isn't it?
I think it's fantastic. I have this talk quite a bit. When I give demos, I always get a comment about, well, it's no fun if you can't touch, and I always tell people that, you have to see it as part of your toolbox.
Mm.
If you use this as the sex toy, it's not about, you know, it's not about sitting next to your wife or girlfriend and not touching them. It's about enhancing the pleasure to an even crazier point.
Mm.
But when we're talking about, helping clinically, absolutely, there's no difference in dress code or behavior compared to if you came here for a quit smoking session.
Mm.
It's just different things that we fix. And sometimes people want to try out and see that they can actually obtain an orgasm after, which is fine. I'm
Mm.
happy to do a hypnotic orgasm. Um, Many times that's the big convincer that people go home happy with.
Mm.
Um, I ask them, but I don't demand that anything like that is going to happen, because that's not okay. I just want them to experience
Mm.
whatever would work best for
Mm.
them. So we talk about these things up front, because I also know that when we do hypnotize, there is a point where they're not able to say no.
Mm.
It's it, if we talk about sex, if we do a demo, we set up the framework first. Where can we play? What's okay? Because I also know that once things are getting heated and things are getting really well, anything that I offer or suggest, they will just accept. And
Mm.
I don't want people with a bad taste in their mouth afterwards. I don't want people to feel like, he kind of overstepped. And I
Mm.
want people to be fine, have fun, and come back.
Well, this is something I know. This is something we've touched on a lot in a lot of episodes on Trancing in the Sheets, actually, which
Mhm.
is informed consent, isn't it? And
Yes.
that's exactly what you're talking about here. And
Yes.
I say, and I've said this repeatedly, I think the world in general can learn a lot from the erotic hypnosis community, the kink community, the BDSM
Absolutely.
community, with regards to talking about stuff, talking about consent, negotiating consent, setting boundaries, how to stop something. You know, I get, you know, quite passionate about this because actually it's those communities that are often come under a lot of judgment when actually their consent practices are by far better than anything you would see in the so-called vanilla world. You know,
Absolutely.
we can learn so much from that.
We
And
talk
you know,
about that
you just
constantly
explained
too.
that beautifully by saying, you know, this is all pre-negotiated. We're not asking for this while someone is in hypnosis, because if they want something more, they can ask for it next time, can't they? You know,
Exactly.
that's how it
Exactly.
works. Yeah.
And it's, you know, and another twist to that is that if you meet a potentially great play partner or whatever it turns into, and you overstep your boundaries on that, you know, in my experience, that person's subconscious is just not going to let you hypnotize again. And
No.
there goes all the fun. So, you know, I always tell people in my classes this: be respectful of the subconscious. Sometimes you can pressure a person in BDSM to do something because you want to. That does not work in hypnosis whatsoever.
No.
That if they're not ready to receive what you're giving them, it's not going to happen. If you overstep your boundaries and you break the trust, it's never going to happen. So step back, and if they're not ready today, just patiently wait until they're ready and take it easy.
And you know, this is the reason why, you know, there needs to be people that are properly trained and highly skilled out there teaching this stuff to people that don't necessarily want to be hypnotherapists or even stage hypnotists. They just want to play with this stuff, even if it's just with one partner.
Yeah.
This is why, you know, when people say, oh my goodness, you know, why would you teach erotic hypnosis? Well, actually, people do use it within their relationships and people do play with it. And there are actually erotic hypnosis groups and conferences that are all over the countries, all over the world. They're across Europe, they're across America, they're in England, wherever you go. So I think we have a choice where we can either teach people really well how to do this stuff really well, really safely, ethically, with a good knowledge base, or that's when the people go on and learn stuff off YouTube and just give it a whirl, which,
Yeah.
you know, that's where the problems start, especially when you're working with stuff like this.
And you know, it's very interesting because people use hypnosis in their sex life already, but they don't know that they do.
Of course they do.
You know, let me tell you how I discovered this little corner. What happened was that my girlfriend and I, we were in bed, we were having sex. I was a hypnotist already. I worked with clinical things and had just begun with this. And she has an orgasm. And for some reason, it occurs to me to just tell her, just double that orgasm. And she did.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, holy, what just happened?
Yeah.
And then I thought about it and realized, well, when you're having an orgasm, you are so far in trance you can ever get.
Well,
And
the sex is a trance, isn't it? You know,
yes, it
we're in that
is.
kind of state.
We're in
Absolutely.
that state where we have focus on one thing. And right there, you are just blindly open to suggestions. And everyone uses it, whether it's you're so beautiful or you're a dirty little girl or whatever it is, it just goes straight into your mind, which is great. Unless we don't know what we're doing, we can cause a lot of damage.
And
So,
I was going to say, and that brings us on to a great thing, because I know you're working on some great projects with this at the moment, aren't you? Where, you know, you're going to be teaching, I think, first of all, in Denmark, but also
yes,
online and certainly English speaking, because I know you have a lot of experience with this. Tell
yes.
us a little bit about that, because we're running out of time, and I think
Okay.
we need to know where to
Well,
get this stuff and learn how to do it well.
what I'm working on right now is hopefully already this week. Right now, it's November. Um, I will have released an online erotic hypnosis course.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, there's a little bit of introduction to how can you quick and easily learn this, to do it in a safe way. And then from there on, we're going to build it to much bigger topics over the course of a year in the form of webinars.
Mm-hmm.
So the people who are there for webinars when they're live will have the option to ask questions. So there will be a Q&A at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And we will just slowly expand on the topics so you get everything. You learn how to do, first of all, efficient hypnosis. How do you hypnotize? Later on, you're going to learn to do the cool hypnosis, the one that makes people, spectators go, what happened? We will, of course, work a lot on orgasms. That's mostly what people look for. We will also talk safety. We will talk BDSM. We will talk all kinds of stuff. We will talk about how to make just the trance erotic. A lot of people love to just trance, and for them, that's plenty. You know, if my girlfriend, if she hears the word trance and I need a volunteer, you know, zoom, she's there. And the deeper, the better. When we have this thing set up and going, I will make an English version. So there will be courses, classes in English with probably pretty much the same content. So we can start teaching the world how to do these things safely, how to have fun with it, how to handle when things go wrong, how to just make the best of all this and just have a great time with it.
And where if people want to contact you now, where do they find you? What's your kind of web address and social media and all those kinds of things?
I have a website. It's in Danish. There will be an English website later on, and that is in Danish. It's pronounced Erotic Hypnose. That's EROTISK On there, there's phone number for me. There's a contact formula. There's an email address, everything. And, you know, of course, I already teach online. If people are interested in a one-on-one online thing, you know, I'm more than happy to
Wonderful.
do that and to just have a talk with people, because it's very interesting.
And that's it. And I guess what we're saying to, especially to maybe hypnotists that are kind of maybe a bit shocked by some of this, is to kind of open their minds a little bit to see the bigger picture with this, because you know every adult essentially is a sexual being, and there's a lot that we can do with hypnosis to help people, yes, have lots of fun with it, but essentially what we're doing is helping people to be comfortable with themselves and their sexuality, and goodness knows the world needs more of that, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I can only say that this has immensely amplified my confidence, my sex life, my experiences. I have never had so much fun in my entire life. It has taught me so many things to do this. And, you know, even if you're not, as you said earlier, you know, if you're not wanting to be a therapist, but just want to be a hypnotist that can do just erotic stuff, you know, it really changes the way you see things. Also in the rest of your life, once you realize what's going on in your mind, that changes everything.
Absolutely. Thank you. We're out of time, Keld, but just thank you so much for spending your time. It's great. I love the way we can do this now, where we can talk to people in, you know, you're in Denmark today and here I am in England. So thank you so much for coming on. And if you're enjoying this episode of Trancing in the Sheets, and how could you not, then we've got lots of other episodes where we talk about all things to do with sex and hypnosis. Everything from doctors helping us understand what to expect if you go and visit your GP about a sexual issue, right the way through to, you know, people like Keld and Mark Wiseman and The Secret Subject, all on the erotic side. So, you know, please keep coming back, tuning in. My name's Kaz Riley. This is Trancing in the Sheets, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.